The sky over rural Pennsylvania hung low and gray. The afternoon, everything changed. The wind carried the first hints of winter, slipping under Elena Whitmore's thin sleeves as she stood beside her son's garage, unsure whether to step inside or cling to the last threads of hope. She had lived 73 years, and none of them, not even the years after losing her husband, had prepared her for the sentence hidden in her son's gentle, practiced voice. "Mom," Michael said, avoiding her eyes as he shifted his weight from foot to foot, "you'll be fine in the garage for a while, just until things settle with the renovations." The words pierced her slowly, like cold rain seeping through cloth. Elena looked toward the house, her house for the last several months since she had moved in to be closer to family. As Michael once promised, she imagined the guest room upstairs, the soft quilt she had stitched decades ago, the lamp that cast warm light over the hardwood floor. But now he claimed it was full of tools. He had said it too quickly, the way people talk when the truth is an inconvenience. "But sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling, "the garage, it's cold, and it's temporary." He cut in sharply. "It won't be long. Temporary." Elena clung to the word like a lifeline, even as she felt it slipping through her fingers. She reminded herself that Michael was stressed. He always was lately, and that good mothers didn't argue. They supported, they endured, they stayed silent to keep peace in the home. Inside the garage, the air smelled of motor oil and dust. Cobwebs clung to the corners like forgotten memories. In the far corner, a cot lay unfolded, a single thin blanket draped over it. On the floor sat a small lamp, its cord coiled like a question mark. Her daughter-in-law must have set it up, though she hadn't said a word when Elena arrived that morning. Elena stepped inside slowly, afraid the concrete floor might crack under the weight of everything she was feeling. The door closed behind her with a soft thud, gentle but final. She sat on the cot, her hands folded on her lap, her wedding band cool against her skin. She stared at the single bulb swinging overhead, casting shadows that trembled like her breath. As daylight dimmed, she listened to the muffled sounds of her son's life happening without her television, laughter, clinking dishes, footsteps crossing wooden floors. Sounds that once meant home. She lay down that night, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. The cold crept in, settling in her bones. Her eyes filled, not with anger, but with a quiet, aching disbelief. How had a lifetime of love led her here, alone in a garage, whispering into the darkness? The first night in the garage haunted Elena well into the following days. Morning brought no warmth, only a pale sun that filtered through the dusty window, illuminating boxes labeled Christmas, old tools, and Michael's college stuff. How strange, she thought, that the things he treasured enough to store were granted more space in his home than the mother who raised him. Each day followed a quiet, painful rhythm. Elena ate her meals alone, delivered without conversation. Her daughter-in-law would open the side door just long enough to slide a plate onto a small folding table, mumble a quick "here you go," and close it again before Elena could even say thank you. At first, she tried not to take it personally. People were busy, she told herself. Everyone had their burdens. But soon she noticed the patterns, the way Michael avoided her during the day, the way he always seemed in a hurry when she asked simple questions, the way they spoke in hushed tones inside the house whenever she walked too close to the door, and the way temporary stretched into days and the days stretched into weeks. One early evening, Elena gathered enough courage to knock softly on the back door. The air was sharp and cold, biting at her fingers. She had rehearsed her words. Maybe I could move into the living room for just a few nights. Maybe there's space now. Maybe I'm burdening them without knowing. But when Michael opened the door, the look on his face dissolved her resolve. "What is it, Mom?" he asked, irritation coating every syllable. She swallowed. "I was wondering if If there might be space inside now, just for the coldest nights. Michael sighed loudly, rubbing his forehead. Mom, we've talked about this. The house is a mess. It's not just about a space. It's about convenience. Please don't make this harder. Make this harder. The words cut deeper than the November air. Elena nodded, stepping back slowly, her heart cracking in places she had never known could break. That night, as she lay on her cot, she tried to make sense of it all. She remembered the years she had walked to work through snowstorms so Michael could use the family car for school. She remembered his tear-stained face when he broke his arm at 8. The way he had clung to her like she was the only safe place in the world. Where had that little boy gone? The garage hummed with silence. Through the thin walls, she heard the muffled sounds of dinner plates and laughter. Life continuing just feet away, yet oceans apart. A slow, aching truth settled over her. Love can carry a child through every hardship, but it cannot stop a grown man from unlearning compassion. And there, wrapped in a thin blanket and a lifetime of sacrifice, Elena felt the first heavy tear slip down her cheek, not out of anger, but out of mourning for a son she felt she was slowly losing. The third week in the garage arrived with a bitter wind that rattled the thin walls like restless ghosts. Elena wrapped her cardigan tighter around her body, watching her breath form small clouds in the frosty air. Her bones ached more each morning, and though she tried to hide it, loneliness had begun to carve deep lines into her spirit. Still, she told herself she could endure it. Mothers endured everything, didn't they? But fate, as it often does, intervened in unexpected ways. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. Elena sat sorting through an old box of Michael's childhood drawings, as if touching the past might somehow fix the present. She didn't notice the garage door opening until she felt a gust of cold air sweep over her. "Elena," a familiar voice called. She looked up to see Mrs. Patterson, her elderly neighbor, peering inside with alarm etched onto her face. She was wrapped in a heavy coat, her white hair pinned neatly as always. But her eyes held a fierceness Elena had never seen before. "My goodness, what are you doing out here?" Mrs. Patterson demanded, stepping closer. "You look frozen." Elena tried to smile, embarrassed. "Oh, it's just while the renovation is happening. It's temporary." Mrs. Patterson's eyes narrowed. "Renovation? I've lived next door for 20 years. The only thing I saw being moved yesterday was your son's new golf bag." The truth hung in the air like an exposed wire. Before Elena could respond, Mrs. Patterson pulled out her phone. "No, I won't allow this. You shouldn't be treated like this. Not after everything you've done for that boy." She dialed quickly, her fingers trembling with anger. "I'm calling for help." Within an hour, 2 cars pulled into the driveway. A social worker stepped out first, followed by a local police officer, Officer Rains, a man with kind eyes and a calm presence. They both approached Elena gently, as though afraid she might break. "Mrs. Whitmore," the social worker said softly, "we've been notified that you may be living in unsafe conditions. Are you all right?" Elena opened her mouth, but the truth tangled with shame. I didn't want to be a bother." Officer Rains shook his head. "You are not a bother. You deserve safety and dignity." Michael stormed out of the house the moment he saw them, his face red with irritation. "What is going on here, Mom? What did you tell them?" Before Elena could speak, the social worker stepped forward. "Sir, we need to ask you a few questions. We have concerns about your mother's well-being." For once, Michael's voice faltered. His excuses tangled in his throat, his confidence cracked. Elena watched him, feeling something inside herself shift, something heavy, something long buried. For the first time in years, she wasn't standing alone. And as Officer Rains gently helped her toward his car, Elena felt the faintest spark of something she thought she had lost forever: hope. The weeks after the intervention passed like a dream Elena had longed for but scarcely believed could exist. The senior community she moved into was small, yet welcoming. Sunlight poured through wide windows, and the rooms smelled faintly of lavender and fresh linen, a stark contrast to the cold, oil-scented air of the garage. For the first time in years, Elena felt warmth not just in her body, but in her heart. Each morning, she sipped tea by the garden, watching goldfinches flit between the rose bushes. Friends emerged slowly, a careful, comforting presence. Mrs. Patterson, who never missed a visit, other residents, whose laughter rose like gentle bells, and Officer Rains, who occasionally checked in, always smiling with quiet reassurance. Elena realized that love, genuine, unselfish love, still existed in the world, even if her own son had abandoned it. And the thought of Michael no longer brought despair. Instead, it stirred a quiet, sweet satisfaction. She began making plans, a life she had postponed for decades. She registered for art classes, volunteered at the local library, and even started a small garden club. Each action, no matter how small, felt like reclaiming a piece of herself that had been trapped in the garage for weeks. Then came the legal details: her inheritance, untouched after her husband's passing, revealed in old documents hidden in the attic she never accessed. Michael had never applied for it, never even mentioned it. Elena carefully consulted her attorney. Decisions were made. Her will was rewritten. Every asset she could claim for herself, for her dignity, for her peace, was secured, and Michael's name no longer appeared. When he eventually arrived, standing stiffly in the lobby with a mixture of anger and disbelief, Elena met him with calm eyes. "Mom," he said, voice tight, "you can't just cut me out of your life. This isn't right." Elena shook her head, her voice gentle yet firm. "I didn't cut you out, Michael. You walked out the day you left me in a garage. You chose convenience over love, and I chose life over bitterness." For a moment he faltered, as though seeing the consequences of his actions for the first time, but Elena didn't gloat. She didn't yell. She simply turned back to the garden, the sun warming her shoulders, and that, she realized, was the sweetest revenge of all: living well with dignity, surrounded by kindness. Living without fear or resentment, watching life bloom around her, while the son who once abandoned her faced the solitude that neglect always brings. Elena smiled softly as she picked up her watering can. She was free, she was safe, she was loved, and that, more than anger, more than punishment, was everything she had ever wanted.